He's definitely brutal, he's always savage, and you're definitely getting wrecked.
A topic brought up and addressed in some recent interviews with the Made in Brazil players, particularly Fallen, has been whether or not the team needs a coach, because this is a squad which hasn't had a coach in a long, long time now. We're talking about 2 years, and they've mentioned that they'd be looking for a coach because the last coach they had in this squad was all the way back when they had Zeus, the Team Liquid coach. And he left sometime after they won the second major, ESL One Clone 2016. He initially left because he had a dream of being a player again, and the Immortals team actually asked him to become their in-game leader playing in the game. Didn't really work out very well. After that, he went to Team Liquid to become their coach, where he's actually had a pretty respectable amount of success, a number of big finals, many top placings. By the way, a lot of wins and best of 3 wins over SK Gaming, his former squad that he'd left. So, in this context, one of the most recent comments was actually by Fallen, who felt as though people were overvaluing this aspect of MiBR needing a coach, or that being the main problem that could kind of fix things. And I can agree and disagree with that, because first of all, yes, the lack of a coach is clearly not the sole or primary factor that holds SK, now MiBR, back from winning tournaments, from making it to big finals, from looking better with the eye test, from being a more dominant team. Sure, it's not the main factor, but I actually do think if you look at most of the other factors within the squad, beyond things like players just do not fit together and may never fit together, beyond basic chemistry and role balance issues, I think most of the other factors that do hold SK, now MiBR, back could either be fixed as a knock-on effect of getting a good coach and integrating him into the system, or lessened. There could at least be not as much of a problem, and therefore more success might come through due to having so many fabulous players. Sure, not in best form at the moment, but we've got a whole bunch of major winners in this squad. Why aren't they having better results? So, first of all, you can immediately start with some circumstantial factors, like SK Gaming were at their absolute best when they had a coach. When they had Zeus as their coach and they won ESL One Clone 2016, that was by far the tournament at which they looked the most dominant. No one could really stop them. Virtus.pro gave them a good match, but even they couldn't actually stand up to them over 3 full maps. All in all, they were dominant in the final. Sure, we'll never know what would have happened if an RV or a Fnatic had made it there, but they didn't. Team Liquid Simple beat them, so they didn't. And so that was when that team looked absolutely its best. The eye test showed they were amazing. Cold Zero was at its peak as a player, arguably. Then you went and you had amazing results, only lost 1 map to win a major, came out of the group of death, but came out unscathed. Won the tournament, and with an amazing map pool where you had stuff like Cobblestone getting added as like a 4th or 5th best map, and you had DOS 2 that you could play. Unbelievable time. This was the absolute peak, the zenith of that team. And when Zeus left, well, we saw they immediately dropped off to just finals and semi-finals, but never winning any tournaments again. They had their problems with FNX. That went away. He had to leave the squad eventually, which began something of the downfall. After that, they've never had the same level of success at majors, even though, yes, they certainly had a very successful tournament circuit generally in the summer and in the latter part of the year in 2017, with a very different type of squad with Phelps, but that team had its own personality issues. When they were this dominant team, one of the things they said in an interview going into ESL One Clone 2016 was that at that point in time, they weren't scrimming massively as their boot camp. They were actually doing a lot of theory work. So they would have a couple of hours of scrimming, and they would have, I think they said something like twice as many hours doing theory. So with a whiteboard or a blackboard, doing like maps, talking about concepts, or breaking down opponents and what you're going to do against them. That's directly within the world of coaching, and that's when this squad was at its best in every respect. The players were at their peak. As a team, they were at their peak. In terms of their style being in vogue and being effective, it was the most unstoppable it ever was, and the personalities were the best balanced within the squad. Now, I can't know what was going on within that team. Maybe Zeus didn't contribute to many of those factors. Maybe some of these aspects were taken care of by Cold Zero, being a general captain, like a star player who's got something of like a leadership aspect to follow the way I play in game and my professions. Maybe Fallen won people over and got people to buy into his approach. But from knowing Zeus and from seeing the way he's worked with Team Liquid and the way he's transformed that squad, I could believe he did have some input in it. And at the very least, he was a contributing factor to some of this amazing success and seemingly great environment from which to play within as a team and have success from. Then you got to look as well, as I alluded to, they had FNX under control at that time, and he was a critical member of that team. Sure, the numbers aren't going to show it. It's not going to... No, this was a team where Fallen was an amazing AWPer. There's a squad there, fantastic, great map pool. coldzera was arguably the best player in the world. But FNX wasn't a problem, and he was there to provide the veteran aspect, to be a calm presence in game, to win clutches. And in that sense, he was a very confident player as well. And they had him under control. After Zeus was gone, he very quickly got out of control. So when we're talking about coaching, let's break it down into different aspects and see how this could help MiBR. So first of all, forget the tactics, forget all the other aspects of recruitment, development of players. Okay, let's imagine Fallen and the others can handle all that. Let's just start with man management. And what I mean by that is, how do you manage the egos in your team? How do you convince someone to take a lesser role so that you can get a better role for another player? How do you decide between a bunch of people who've been star players, including Tarek, who they're rumoured to pick up now, being the main focal point of the offence, but you're going to have 4 or 5 of these players, and so a bunch of them cannot be the main focal point, and they're going to have to get far less resources and space and attention than they did in the past. How do you convince these people? That's where a coach can be very, very useful, especially when the in-game leader himself, in the terms of Fallen, is one of the guys trying to make the case that either he's going to have to give up part of the game, or he's going to be more of a focal point, as he was in 2016. So I think that when you had someone like Zeus in the squad, it doesn't surprise me that those fiery personalities of coldzera, FNX, in their own ways, were all kept in line and part of a harmony. After this team, FNX had to leave. They couldn't keep him in the squad. coldzera and Fallen have had their issues in terms of philosophy for the game and obviously who should be in-game leader. There's this legendary story from 2017, I think it was, where they failed, I think it was the Star Series tournament or Katowice, one of the two, I think it was Star Series, and Fur and coldzera basically had a falling out, and Fur was just going to leave the team, and then coldzera came to his room. They had like a heartfelt moment. They said like, fuck it, let's like work it together again, let's win everything. So you can see this is exactly where a coach who had real leadership skills and could manage could have had a massive impact, because within that story you notice there's no Fallen there, because they're all just players and they've all won majors together, they've all done the maximum thing, and Fallen's the in-game leader, so he can call the tactics and decide what to do inside the game, but he's not the boss of coldzera. Why would he be the boss of Fur? Why would he get to tell Fur what to do? That's the problem. You can't always put it all on your in-game leader and have him play the role of coach as well. So you think of some of the issues in terms of man management that having a coach could have solved, or could solve now or going forward. So let's combine them. coldzera has wanted to leave the team. This is something that has been publicly said. He's thought about it in the past. He's had the offers from the FaZe clans of the world. Phelps fell apart as a player in terms of his ego, in terms of how he fit in the squad. Eventually, he had to be removed from the team, and actually looks much better since then. A coach could have worked with him, could have been able to see his perspective, could maybe find some one-on-one communication to relay to the rest of the squad what his problems were. Likewise, coldzera, you'd find a way to always know where that guy was at in terms of temperature, know who he has to stay away from, know who to form bonds with, and go to them and say, listen, the way he's feeling is this way, he can't communicate. This all could have been done. Boltz's confidence has been absolutely crushed. He's become the scapegoat of the team. Feels like there's nothing in it for him in the team. He's supposed to be gone already in place of Flamey, right? This is exactly where you needed someone with a soft touch. This is a player who very easily can retreat into his shell. And when he does, his game's going to go to shit. And he is not a bad player. He absolutely could be a much, much better player than he is in MiBR if he was on a different team and given a different role and a different kind of confidence from his teammates. They actually want him on the fucking team. You look at Taco leaving and going and resurrecting his career in Team Liquid. Sure, right at the moment this video is being recorded, they're not a very good team. They've had a lot of flaws. But he is someone who definitely has a lot left to give in the game. But was he going to do it in that team where he himself was getting the treatment Boltz is getting now? No, because they didn't have... The other players in the team aren't going to say, hey, let me take a load of that hate, mate, and by the way, you're doing fine. No, unfortunately, they'd gotten to a place where, because they weren't winning and they were a team built around winning, I always said this, watch what happens to a team built around winning when they stop. That's where you will see the arguments come in and where differences will become irreconcilable because you don't have that victory next month to make it all seem worth it and to make it easy to look past that, or to stop you all dividing up the credit and say, oh, I did well even though we lost the game. You know, if you win, you say, fuck it, we got the trophy. I feel like Taco's departure could either have been delayed or it could have been avoided entirely. I mean, is he really someone who you had to throw away? If anything, you've seen now, they need him right in the team, actually. The old Taco, at least, if they could convince him to be the old Taco, they absolutely need that to help coldzera, to help the squad, to give them that supportive call that they have absolutely lost since they made the switch to Stewie, because he's not that sort of player. He doesn't have the Brazilian culture or ability to speak Portuguese, so they've just lost some of that vital element of the team. And even Fallen has seemingly lost confidence in his own identity, both as an in-game leader and as a fucking player. He doesn't look like an Orper who has confidence or really believes he can be one of the best in the world or can take over a game, whether he's going to be a starring role or not. He looks like a guy who's lost in a quicksand of doubt himself. Like, he himself doesn't know how to get back. This is where even just having someone else to talk to work with, who knows you, who knows the others, and who cares about you individually, hopefully has some tenure as a coach or a player, can actually maybe help you with some of that and offset some of the pressure. Then you do look tactically where you'd like to add in something to MiBR. First and foremost, they don't have to take over and impose a whole philosophy, but it can be a fresh set of eyes, another mind to interact with beyond the players who themselves have their own incentive to want their role to be better emphasized, to not have to do things that are shit or that are really difficult to do in the game or they're going to make them look bad. You want someone else who's neutral but cares about the team, and therefore you can bounce ideas off them. They can be the voice that gives an idea that you came up with as the in-game leader to help you get an idea out there, so it doesn't always look like it's just coming from you. I think this could have helped Fallen so much, especially so that he wouldn't have had to switch from being in-game leader, and if he had, they could have transitioned properly to coldzera instead of that stupid middle ground no man's land that they chose to go with, where coldzera called on a couple of maps, Fallen called on a couple of maps, and they even let Stu2K call on a map. Like, that showed me that team was utterly broken at that point in time. Then you got to add in that Fallen is one of the greatest in-game leaders we've had. But even the great in-game leaders get stuck in a certain philosophy, a certain way of thinking about the game, and especially the ones who are great because they've had so much success. So they're so used to them being the one that's right when the world tells them they're wrong. When someone else says this is superior, they're used to being like, no, actually my idea is going to win out over that. But when you get to a position where all the results, all the feedback of your individual play, the team's play, the results are telling you this doesn't work, it's not working, you either end up like Fallen now, completely broken, you just lost all confidence, you even let someone else be the in-game leader, you wouldn't let any player leave, any player join, who the fuck knows what's going to happen, I'll do my best, you know, hopefully we can work around it. Like, you either end up like that, a broken man on a downward spiral, or you end up even worse, the way that I think in the past I think people like MSL have sometimes fallen in this trap, where you're getting results that are telling you something's going wrong, but you're just saying, no, it's not me though. I'm calling the right thing. This guy's just not doing it right, or maybe he can't play his role anymore. Or it's the opponents, like, you know, the gun's overpowered. Like, that weapon needs to be nerfed, and doesn't matter if that's their strongest map. Like, we should have beaten them if we'd have played it out correctly. I hate the school of if it played out correctly, because that's just a fantasy and a delusion. But okay, you can see the point I'm trying to make there. So I think that this is where having a separate person could help Fallen, could help the players individually, and also could have actually had some development. Like, when you bring in a Phelps, when you bring in a Bolts, when you bring in someone like Stewie2K, in the past teams, well, it's okay, we can bring Taco in because we've got Zeus. He's worked with Taco in the past. He's come to this team now. He's worked with Fallen. He gets a sense of what the overall environment's going to be, what role Taco's going to have to play. They work with him. He gets better. coldzera improved as a player under Zeus. These other players have had little spikes at the beginning. You think about Phelps at the beginning, they won a load. You think about Bolts at the beginning, they won a load, then it went to shit. You think about Stewie, like, I guess they didn't win much and they didn't really have many better results, but he's played all right, but there's never been any real improvement. He hasn't been integrated very well. He's still very much a man apart from the team. This is, again, where having a different person to interact with them and maybe even work specifically with them, a la Starix with Flamey when Flamey joined Na'Vi, and then later Starix became the coach and he was working with Flamey intimately. He was trying to figure out this guy's role and integrate him and talk him through the philosophy of how they were going to play and what their overall team style was and where he would fit in the color of the team, as it were, there, to use that Korean term from Korean team esports. So I also think a factor that comes to play here is the in-game leader himself is sometimes too close to the action. If he says something, it won't be taken just as an idea. They'll think, who's saying this to me in terms of who's this guy as my teammate? What's his relationship to me? How does he act towards me? Is he very demanding of me? In which case, is he blaming me for something? Is he actually trying to encourage me by suggesting I experiment in this way or do something particular? If you have a second person who that can come through, or can even be the one making that suggestion, it may be better received, even though it's the same information. You can play good cop, bad cop if you have the right kind of balance within the squad. Maybe you need a very forceful in-game leader in the game, but you need someone that's very soft touch out of the game. It's hard to move between those if you're the in-game leader, and you got your own fucking game to deal with if you're someone like Fallen. Finally, I'll just say this. Look at the rest of the scene and how many of the other top teams have coaches, and then just ask yourself, how does MiBR, a team having no success, with no meaningful trophies this year, how does a team like that then say we don't need a coach? To even just try it, to even give it a go, to even see if it can help. So let's go down the top 10. I'll go by HLTV.org's top 10 rankings, because I don't have my own rankings out this year. It's going to be relaunched, rebooted soon. Number 1 on the list is Astralis. They obviously have Zonic, long-time coach of theirs, legendary 1.6 player. Na'Vi has Kane, a long-time in-game leader from 1.6, a long history with Zeus, worked with him in Gambit where they won a major. You have FaZe is number 3, obviously Robban, another old-school 1.6 in-game leader, working with Karrigan for a number of years now. You have Zeus, who is on Team Liquid. He's the former SK Gaming MiBR coach. Obviously, they weren't called MiBR at the time. And he works with the American Team Liquid squad. You can see how he's turned them around. Then you have MiBR, because the holdover from some of the past placings, they don't have one. They're the only one so far on the list that don't have one. Number 6, you've got Mouse Sports. Obviously, they have LMBT, former Hellraisers coach. There's a guy from the CIS squad, in-game leader from the end of 1.6. Often gets credited for a lot of their system and how Chris J learned to be a proper in-game leader in Mouse Sports. Then you have Big. Lagia obviously used to play in Big. He has worked with Godby for many, many years now. He's someone with a decent history of being an in-game leader, of someone being vaguely tactical. We don't know what he does there, but they've just had this big result. Fair enough. Fnatic then comes in. A lot of people might not know this guy, but Jumpy was a 1.6 in-game leader around 2009, 2010. Then in CS 1.6, CSGO rather, from 2016 on, I think it was, he's been the coach of this squad. He's been part of them turning the squad around. He played a pivotal role in bringing in Golden, in changing up the system within the team. He's part of why they brought in Draken and Exist now. Then you have NRG, obviously that NA squad that had a couple of surprising big placings. They have I'm a Pet, the former coach of Optic, and before that CLG. He's working with Daps now. He gives Daps a fresh set of eyes. Obviously, he's been in some of the teams that we think of at the lower end of the scene, where some of these players, like some of the CLG players, played in the past. Finally, we have North. North has Ave, probably the best 1.6 in-game leader of all time. Someone who's worked with their academy squad and who is now partnering up with MSL to work in North. And you've seen an improvement in their results under the time he's been around, especially the last few months. So the only squad in the top 10 that does not have a coach, especially no one you've ever heard of, is MiBR. So at the very worst, I figure it's got to be worth a try, right? This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Daniel Yordanov, TTMXMP, VeXii, HawpT, Robert Baxter and Travis Greb, with a special thanks going out to Jerky's Minion. Want teasers for my upcoming content? To ask a question for my monthly AMA? How about taking part in a discussion with me about esports? Or perhaps you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Become a part of the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.